Hi, everybody, and welcome to Announcers On. I'm Dave Sims with co-host Boog Sciambi. Good to have you with us here. And our special guest in this segment is my good buddy, my broadcasting pal with the Seattle Mariners. He's Rick Rizzs. Rico, what's happening, pal?
Hey, David, I'm doing fine. How are you there in New York? And Boog, it's great to see you as well.
Good to see you, Rick.
Doing the responsible thing, staying home and, doing a lot of cooking and waiting for this time in our lives to come back.
Amen, brother. That's exactly right. I like the return of the beard and the mustache. It's good, man. It's good.
Well, over the last month, I grew out my beard and I looked like Ernest Hemingway, and I didn't like that look. I went with the George Clooney. So I thought this would be a little bit. What do you think?
That's good. I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
Boog, you good?
I'm real good.
All right.
Everything's good, man. Just, here in New York with you, and, every day is, hopefully getting a tiny bit better. That's fingers crossed, right?
Yeah. Rico, in terms of what you're hearing from the boys in Park Avenue and the various things that are being tossed out of possibilities, do you think we have a shot at coming back, and if so, when?
Well, I think to answer that question, it has to come from the CDC and the World Health Organization and what you guys are doing there in New York and Seattle and Los Angeles and around the country and around the world. We got to get a grip on this thing. We have to try to get it under control as best we can. We have to find eventually a cure and a vaccine for this deadly virus. And you guys in New York know that better than anybody else. I like the idea of baseball trying to figure out some alternatives about how we can get back on the field, but it's got to be in a safe manner for the players, for the trainers, for the media, for all the staff people that would possibly, get this together. So it all depends on a lot of factors right now. And if we can get something under control and flatten out that curve, and then I think it's good to start looking at some options.
I think there's got to be testing, right? There's got to be access to testing is the big. I mean, look, we're not medical people. You can't give access to widespread, large-scale testing to a sports league before you give it to New York, Detroit, and New Orleans. So I think that's the first thing. Until large-scale testing is available, the points kind of move. There's even a new plan that came out today about the possibility, not Arizona, but that for this year, they do it by spring training site. So that
I saw that Bobby Nightingale's piece in USA Today, right?
So that instead of just Arizona, that the teams in Florida play each other, so everybody has a home field, a home place that, you wouldn't have to keep disinfecting. It's just that group. I mean, obviously you keep cleaning, but who knows? I mean, I think that if it happens, if we see baseball this year, it's going to be. I think it's always safe. The answer to be it'll be longer than you think.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. I think this is going to be a while. So, settle in, get some good books, and get some good material to read.
Watch a lot of movies.
Yeah, amen. How have you been entertaining yourself?
Well, I tell you what, the weather here in Seattle is beautiful right now. So I go on a long walk and I do the responsible thing and I stay away from people. If somebody's coming down the sidewalk walking their dog, I get out on the street. So we keep our social and physical distance. But I've also, been really bored. So I've cleaned out the junk drawer. I cleaned out the drawer with the Tupperware and the lid so that I can find things.
Nice.
I've killed the weeds in the backyard. I've done a lot of cooking. I've made a pot roast that lasted me for 4 days. I cooked my mom's homemade spaghetti sauce.
Man,
wow.
Busy bee.
A lot of cooking, a lot of cleaning, and a lot of watching movies. I watched the Jackie Robinson story the other night featuring Jackie Robinson.
That 1952-53 version, yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm doing what we should be doing, the responsible thing, like I said, stay inside so we can get some sort of control on this, Yeah. And because the first responders, the doctors and the nurses they're our new heroes now. They've really come out as our new heroes. What they do has been absolutely incredible. to help those with the virus. We don't need to add to that total, all of us that are healthy. So we need to stay inside and stay healthy so we don't add to their numbers. But they've been incredible.
Well, let's get into some of our questions here. We do call this thing Announcers On, and let's ask Rick this one. Rick, 35 years now with the Mariners. Such a good friend and was so welcoming when I got there in 2007. What was the thing that propelled you to want to, back in the day, that propelled you to want to get into the business?
Well, I tell you what, it all started as a kid. I grew up on the south side of Chicago, as you know, David, and I had the best of both worlds. I had the Cubbies during the day and the White Sox at night. So as a 6-year-old kid back in 1959, the White Sox made it to the World Series, lost to the Dodgers in 6 games. And my hero back then was Louis Aparicio. Jack Brickhouse was a longtime broadcaster in Chicago, mostly for the Cubs for 40 years, but also did White Sox games as well. So as a kid, coming home from school, my mother was the biggest Cub fan in the world. And she loved Ron Santo and Ernie Banks and Billy Williams and back in the day. And when I would come home, I'd finish watching the game on television with her. There were times where I would go downstairs, turn on the TV set, and tune into the baseball game, turn down the sound, and pretend I was Jack Brickhouse doing the play-by-play. Bases are loaded, Ernie Banks up, swinging a fly ball. God, and so that's how I started falling in love with the game of baseball. We had a sandlot behind my house, as you know. I told that story a million times to you. The movie The Sandlot was the story of my life. So when I was 12 years old, I wrote Jack Brickhouse a letter. I said, "Dear Mr. Brickhouse, I'd like to be a major league broadcaster just like you. How do I do?" And he wrote me back a letter. And he told me what you would tell any 12-year-old kid: work hard, believe in yourself, eat your vegetables. He didn't say that. I just kind of added that myself. But I had this letter for years, and sure enough, I played baseball in high school like millions of other kids, and walked on and made the team at Southern Illinois University, where I majored in radio and television. 2 days after I graduated, I'm in the minor leagues. But that's where I fell in love with the game of baseball. Listening to the games on radio, too, came alive for me with Jack Brickhouse and Lou Boudreau and Lloyd Pettit, Vince Lloyd, and all those guys. So it's what I wanted to do ever since I was 12 years old, David and John, and so I'm living my dream. So I'm one of the luckiest guys on the face of the earth.
That's
Boog?
amazing. Yeah, I guess one of the things, I think about, you and Dave working together, and Dave Niehaus, obviously,
Yeah.
and the influence that he might have had on your career. And I also wanted to ask you, do you remember the first time you used Goodbye Baseball?
Yes. First of all, with Dave Niehaus, if it wasn't for Dave Niehaus, Boog, I wouldn't be here. I spent 8 years in the minor leagues broadcasting in Alexandria, Louisiana, Amarillo, Texas for 2 years, Memphis, Tennessee for 3 years with the Expos Farm Clubs, the Padres in 75, 6, and 7 there, and then with the Yankees AAA team at Columbus with the Clippers in 81 and 82. So Dave Niehaus got me here in 1983, listening to all those cassette tapes back then. And so I was able to get the job, get to the big leagues. I was here for 9 years, Boog, and then Ernie Harwell was, let go by the Detroit Tigers after the 91 season. He told me to apply for the job, which I did, never thinking I would get it. I got the job. I was there for 3 years. It was a rough go for 3 years. Ball club was sold my first year by Tom Monahan to Mike Ilitch, and then they wanted Ernie back, and they got Ernie back, so they let me go after 3 years. Dave Niehaus got me back in 1995. He got me back. He got me there as a young broadcaster in 83. He got me back, and thank God I didn't miss the 1995 season, but he got me back for a second time. So if it wasn't for Dave Niehaus, I wouldn't be here, Boog. I owe David everything, in my broadcast career. He was a great friend, great mentor, unbelievable to sit next to for every game for 25 years. This guy truly was one of the greatest broadcasters in the history of the game of baseball, and went in the Hall of Fame, as you know, in 2008. So I owe Dave Niehaus everything. As far as the Goodbye Baseball, Boog, when I started out broadcasting in college, in my first 2 years in the minor leagues, I would do, swinging a fly ball, and it's gone, a home run. But when I was in Amarillo in 1976, the Texas Rangers would come to town with a caravan, much like we do every year. We go for 3 weeks. We go around the state. We go around the Pacific Northwest to Canada, to Alaska, into Oregon, down to Portland, and we visit with our affiliate radio stations and sponsors and kids, and we put on a program for the kids. And that's what the Texas Rangers did in 1976. Dick Reisenhover was the announcer for the Texas Rangers. And he came up with a couple of the players to Amarillo on the caravan. And I had a chance to sit down and talk with Dick Reisenhover for a good hour after a luncheon. And he encouraged me. He said, if you need any help, please give me a call. And he was so warm, encouraging, and little time I spent with him had a great impact on me. The following year, Mr. Reisenhover passed away from cancer. Dick Reisenhover's home run call, Boog, was "Goodbye, Mr. Spalding." So in honor of Dick Reisenhover, I kind of tweaked it a little bit. Instead of "Goodbye, Mr. Spalding," I went "Swinging a fly ball, goodbye, baseball." So it's in honor of Dick Reisenhover, the longtime broadcaster for the Texas Rangers, who had an impact on a young broadcaster struggling in the minor leagues, ever wondering and praying if he was ever going to make it. And Dick Reisenhover was there for me. So in honor of Dick Reisenhover, I say now, goodbye baseball and a home run.
That's a great story. Announcers On. I'm Dave Sims, Boog Sciambi. Rick Rizzs, our special guest right now. And how about players? Special relationship with any player in particular that jumps out in your mind? I mean, you've had a great run, 35 years in the business. I mean, is there one guy that I think I know who it is, but go ahead and tell the folks who that guy is.
There's so many.
Yeah.
But Ken Griffey Jr., was a thrill to be around and going to be around ever since, he was a kid. I still call him the kid, and he's almost 50 years old. Drafted in 1987 as a 17-year-old, getting to the big leagues at 19 years of age. We just bonded so quickly. I recall in Tempe, Arizona at spring training in 1989, he was having a tremendous spring, hitting 400, and the GM of the ball club said, "Oh, he's not going to make it. He's not going to make it." But he was by far the best player of the ball club, at spring training. And during the spring, I'd get out there to the ballpark early to do a pregame interview, and I had my son with me. My son Nick is now 40. He was 9 years old at the time, and he and I were just standing out in front of the dugout at Diablo Stadium there in Tempe. Nobody had gone on the field yet. It was still early. And then Junior came out of the clubhouse to the edge of the dugout, and he called Nick over. And so my 9-year-old son, back in 1989, went over and had a little conversation with Junior. They talked for a minute, and then Nick came walking up to me, and he kicked me really hard in the leg. And it hurt. I go, "What are you doing?" He said, "Junior said he'd give me $50 if I kick you in the leg." I said, "You turn around." And I said, "Junior, don't give him the money." So from that point on, I found out, this kid had a great sense of humor, still does, still loves the game of baseball, the joy that he played it with, the smile that he had on his face the entire time he played the game. He never, ever changed. He turned into a great player and a Hall of Fame player, and I just love him dearly. But, I could go right down the list. Pick a name from that 1995 ball
yeah,
game.
I know that. Yeah, for sure.
Jay Buhner and Edgar Martinez and Norm Charlton and Randy Johnson, especially Mike Blowers, now our partner on radio and television. So, but I've had the pleasure and privilege, as you guys know, Dave and Boog know, working in Major League Baseball. You create these special bonds with so many guys, and they mean so much to you. Alvin Davis from the early days, and Harold Reynolds. All those guys, Richie Zisk and Gaylord Perry in 1983, my first year, had an impact on me. Richie, I was getting ready to leave the Grand Hyatt to go jump in a taxi to go to Yankee Stadium. And he came out. I said, "Where are you going?" I said, "Going to the ballpark." He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm getting in a cab, going to the ballpark." Richie said, "No, you're not. You're coming with me." I said, "Where are we going?" He said, "We're going on the subway." I said, "No, I'm not going on the subway. That's not, that thing's happened down there, And he said, "No, you're coming on the subway with me." And he grabbed my hand. We walked around the corner, went down the subway, and it was the greatest experience in the world. It was outstanding. And so he had an impact on me. Gaylord Perry in 1983. then the other great players that you meet along the way, and George Brett and so many others, Alan Trammell, Kirk Gibson, Sparky Anderson, Al Kaline, who, oh my God, just passed away a couple of days ago. It meant so
we had
much.
a good visit with him in August when we were there last year in Detroit. What a lovely guy. Some funny stories. A lot of them you can't tell on the air, but I mean, from a baseball standpoint, and just catching up with one of the all-time greats, man. That's such a blast. Boog, what you got?
You mentioned 1995. I don't know that everybody outside the Pacific Northwest, I think about that team and beating the Yankees in that just thrilling series. But there are a lot of people that tell the story that team kind of saved baseball in Seattle to some degree, or at least helped propel towards, getting a new ballpark, et cetera. Tell me a little bit about that.
Boog, there's no question that ball club saved baseball here in the Northwest. We wouldn't be doing this interview right now. I wouldn't be here. The Mariners wouldn't be here. They'd be the Tampa Bay Mariners. Plain and simple. They saved baseball. What they did at the time they did it, when they did it, saved baseball in the Northwest. Because at the time, there was a vote for tax to build a ballpark, a 1/10 of 1% tax to build a ballpark in September of that year. And it was going pretty well. People were going out voting. The Mariners were playing the Texas Rangers on September the 17th. But later on, we found out when other votes came in from Eastern Washington, it failed by 1,000 votes. But thank goodness for, at the time, Governor Mike Lowry put together a creative funding package to build a ballpark of restaurant and bar tax, a car rental tax, and also the My Oh My lottery. And with those three entities, it was enough money to generate the revenue to build Safeco Field, which is now T-Mobile Park. So they had the money then to build T-Mobile Park. But if that ball club didn't make that run, it would not have generated the energy and the excitement for people to get out and vote and say, you know what, we can survive here in the Northwest. Not only survive, but thrive here in the Northwest. Dave Niehaus said for years, all the fans needed here was something to get excited about. And finally, 1995 came around, and we made it to the playoffs for the first time. We were 13 games out of first place, Boog, on August the 1st, and came back, ended up in a tie with the California Angels, and had the one-game playoff in early October against the Angels. Randy Johnson against Mark Langston. Game was a 1-0 ball game, bottom of the 7th inning. With the bases loaded, Luis Sojo had the broken bat hit past JT Snow down the right field line, and everybody scored. Mariners won the ball game, got to the American League Division Series, go to New York, and lose the first two games, needing to come back to Seattle now to the Kingdom to win 3 in a row, which they did on that long flight back home. It was a 15-inning loss, Boog. Yeah. And we didn't get out of Yankee Stadium, I think, till about 1 o'clock in the morning, if that. We go to the airport, get on the plane, we fly home. About halfway home, so it had to be like 4 o'clock in the morning, 4:30 in the morning. I get up, I go to the front of the plane, and it's pitch black on the plane. And I'm standing there by myself. All of a sudden, I see somebody get up, and it's Lou Piniella. And Lou walks right up to me, looks me in the eyes, and goes, "We're going to win this thing." And I swear to God, I thought I saw flame shooting out of his eyes. I said, "You bet, Lou. We got Randy going tomorrow. Randy Johnson." Randy wins game 3, 7-4. I said, we get game 4, and then we get him in game 5. Game 4, Edgar Martinez will tell you that was the best game of his career, because in game 4, the Mariners were down 5-0 after 3 innings, and Edgar hit a 3-run home run to get him back in the ball game to make it 5-3. Later on, with the game tied, hits a grand slam home run, hits 2 home runs, 7 RBIs. Mariners win the game eventually 11-8 to get us to game 5. Then Edgar has the double in game 5. But in September, early September, we weren't drawing all that well, but all of a sudden we were getting closer and closer to the California Angels. The Angels kept losing. The Mariners kept winning. And now, instead of 15,000 fans, there's 20,000. There's 25, 30, 35, 40, 45,000. All of a sudden, 50, 55,000 fans started to show up at the Kingdom. And the noise was just deafening, made all the little hairs on the back of your neck stand up. The fans and the team, what they did, created that excitement. And if they didn't do it, we wouldn't be here. Those guys save baseball, that team here in the Pacific Northwest, no doubt in my mind.
Unbelievable. Rico, we gotta put a wrap on this one. We appreciate the time, and hope to see you soon.
You betcha.
Good. Lord only knows what the heck is going to happen. It's
Let's take care of ourselves. Let's take care of our first responders. Make sure they're healthy. Let's get the people who have the virus. Let's get them all healthy and get them back. And let's do what we have to do and be responsible. And we'll get back to our normal lives. Hopefully.
I'm happy to say that a friend of mine, I talked to him, a veteran stat guy, had it, beat it, and is back home. So hopefully we'll have more stories like that. Rico, be well, man, and say hello to the gang back in Seattle, and we'll see you down the line.
I will, David. Boog, take care, buddy. Stay healthy, stay safe.
Rick, good to see you. Thanks for doing this.
Good to see you too, buddy. Bye, guys.
All right, bye-bye. Rick Rizzs, everybody. Boog Sciambi and I shall return. We've got more coming your way here on Announcers On.